Mhm.
You're getting too big, man.
Yeah, I don't think
That
that's
humanity
possible.
thing. Where is it that helpful humanity? Or I know it's two H's. Something
Yeah, Humanity Healing
humanity
International.
healing.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, yeah, the pretty consistent 40 views going up and down between 30 to 50. Huh?
Well, or if you go back and check the video, I'm up to about 4,500 views on
Huh.
that particular one. Couple of them I've hit 8,000, 9,000 views.
Well, aren't you just fancy pantsy?
Well, it's kind of fun to be able to see a little sharing and appreciation of
Yeah.
things that are a little more mindful than the usual panic and pandemonium that social media is invested in. But nonetheless, it's a beautiful morning here in the Chicago region, although a bit chilly. We have rainstorms coming, and then I think it's supposed to be cold throughout the week of Thanksgiving.
Do people tune in for the weather around here?
No, but I just
Usually
like to
get the
share.
energetic weather.
Well, I like sharing it simply because there are people in Australia and Mumbai and Paris and all over the world that we
Yeah.
occasionally cross paths with, and it's one thing we have in common: the fact that the weather is doing what the weather is doing all over the world.
Yeah, I have common listeners from England, South Africa, a lot of the United States and Canada, but a few other places, India. Yeah. As far as
Yes,
I mean, it's popping up all over the place, but as far as consistent and the most listeners are from other countries are those ones. It's pretty cool.
yeah.
And we can reach around the world.
Well, it's symptomatic of the fact that everything is evolving, and that you know the ultimately the outcome of all this hopefully will be good. It's something where we don't have a lot of assurances, but we do have
Mm.
a couple of statements from Jesus that are very encouraging. So whenever we can get out there and spread the word, I think it behooves us.
Agreed, absolutely. That's what we're doing. I like giving
So
it a different spin too, a little different vibe. And you and I, we talk in a different fashion. There's a lot of people can just repeat what the course says and just say what it does and just but we want to give a different take, make it a little more interesting, not just the same thing over and over, but maybe different ways of looking at the same thing.
yeah, and getting to a point where we realize that our understanding is always evolving. It is not in any way a static thing.
Yeah,
And so the
as I
more
call it.
we
uh,
the,
uh,
the
Sorry.
more we learn, the more we evolve, the more we're able to comprehend the true dimensions of
Yeah,
everything that's going on.
it's an evolving perspective of an awakened consciousness.
Yes, and it doesn't cost you anything. That's the beauty of it. There are no subscription fees.
39.95 on weekends.
Well, I heard a little voice in the background there. Do you have a
Yeah,
visitor?
he just brought over some beads. Hey, Atreyu, you want to say hi? Like, oh no, that's the way to get him running away. It's like, whoa, no,
That's
I'm in my
interesting.
diaper.
He has an aversion to being on the silver screen, it appears.
Yeah, he has definitely, I mean, he's been the majority of the time playing by himself around here, and he's waiting for little brother to grow up, but he still can't play too much yet. And so, you know, I feel bad in a way because I grew up with, I was the seventh of 9 kids, and I always had someone to play with, someone around me, and it was always kind of noisy and loud. And then to see him, it's like most of the time he's the only child when the other kids aren't here, and I could just see it working on him a little differently. You know, it's as far as, you know, it definitely a false empathy about it, and you know, thinking I understand what is necessary to develop him. And so, you know, he was in a position about a year ago where he wanted to be behind the mics all the time. This is another thing that brought up, and he wanted to be the mics and not the video. I think the video does apply something, but he would always go test because he would hear me testing the mics, and it was just adorable. And yet he would touch the mics and move them around, and he did break one. And so I was starting to get a little more stern about it, and I feel like I've traumatized him at the same time. And you know, and so it brought up just the other day, thinking how he doesn't really want to do that anymore. And I'm like, oh man, yeah, look at that, kind of trying to get this sense of feeling guilty about it, and like, oh, I'm screwing him up. You know, it's always there. There's always that opportunity to really feel like you're screwing something up. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, we definitely have multiple options as far as guilt. And a friend of mine, Mary Rose, she's had her dog for 13 years, and she had to put the dog down a few days ago. It had developed cancer in the lymph nodes and all kinds of things, and it was getting pretty ugly. But you know, she walks away from that experience feeling guilt. You know, I killed my dog, and it's, well, not really. You relieved your dog from suffering, and your dog is still a part of you. So it's always an option to buy into guilt, and we really have to be on guard not to go that avenue. You know, at the same time, we have to do things that are not going to accrue guilt. We can't go out and, you know, attack the neighbor and have the expectation of walking away from that without any attachment to it. So it is a conundrum.
Yeah, I definitely have some sort of split. I can't diagnose myself, but some sort of split personality thing going on. It's like, you know, at the same time, Devin goes around, can have all sorts of emotions, every emotion possible. And then it's like instantaneously, I could just be this presence that isn't really associated to that sensation, doesn't really process it in that fashion. And it's just, you know, in the complete essence of just love's perspective. And so not so much detached from it, like I don't care, but it, you know, Devin's always worried about the world, doing things in the world, and I used to think that I had to correct Devin, you know, and fix Devin, but then I was just getting more involved, more engaged in it, thinking I was Devin, and it was this whole, not so much as if it actually is detached, you know, it's actually just the misunderstanding that there is a Devin and there is a world and there is sensations and of separation and all sorts of things. So
yes, the grand illusion, it just keeps going on and on and on.
yeah.
So do you know who David L. Hicks is?
Not by name, you know, tell you the truth, if you're referencing to any books or anything.
Well,
I have not read anything.
he's a writer, and quite quite an interesting writer, because he has a couple of books out there that have a definite edge. You know, one of his books is called Unleashing Her G-Spot Orgasm, which
Sounds
is,
spiritual.
well, I guess it is if you're a woman and your G-spot is something that you're seeking. But anyway, Donald he's a fascinating guy, but he has some really profound thoughts every once in a while. And it's, you know, it's kind of cool to be able to connect with some of his ideas, some of his concepts.
And you were reading this book in pure research, right?
No, actually, I was not reading the book at all. It was from another book of his. It says, love, love and fear are polar opposites. Love originates from the soul, while fear and worries and insecurities originate in the mind. Love is heavenly, while fear is earthly. Love is a gift from above. Fear is a burden from below. And that's your quote from Donald Hicks this morning. And I thought that was kind of tying in some ways to what we were discussing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, you know, interesting how the mind is so dominant when it regards to the ideas of fear and so much processing of the world, and how it's come to me in almost any definition of polar opposites, say as fear and love, is that it's the association of mind to, say, the body and death, this association that the mind has, I am a body, I will die, and then the association to eternal life, even as the soul. The consciousness is still there, but it's in the perspective of, you know, complete trust, you know, naturally. And it's like these are the difference of, there's many different stages of this awareness of what a miracle is, and it essentially is from the focus on the body or the focus on, say, the soul and the eternal perspective. And that, you know, fear for someone that knows they are eternal and one with everything is a complete, and it's a joke. It doesn't really make sense. You really don't have a place for it. And especially if you know you're eternal, you also know and recall the order of creation of all the universe, including this moment. So it's, you know, even as, and as again, yes, so referencing to my mind as a split personality, you know, that split mind where there's a right-minded and wrong-minded idea, that it, you know, if it's focused not so much on the body and this is going to happen to the body, but the ideas of what the body's laws consist of, the body then is a representation of those ideas. And the soul is a representation of the ideas of the unity of love. And in that same essence, it will naturally just reflect if you're in correspondence to thinking to that. So that's what A Course in Miracles is about, is the mind training of that same one consciousness from these ideas of fear, loss, death, and confusion, over to the simplicity of singularity of love and complete peace.
Exactly. And, you know, one of the things that we really, as we immerse ourselves in the Course, we arrive at a plateau where we're not really inclined to do a huge amount of judgment. You know, we're trying to remove ourselves from judging everything we encounter in life. But I thought it was kind of fun, Mr. Hicks, you know, some of the things that he has written about from a purely Christian perspective could probably be perceived to be
Really?
a little over the edge. But then, you know, other things that I am aware of that have come from this man have been really very profound, very deep thoughts. And I think that's what we have to really put a lot of emphasis on, is our tendency to block out people because we read one sentence from them and immediately condemn them across the board, or distance ourselves
It's
from them,
true.
or reject them.
Yeah.
And we really have to be present for being receptive to what the universe is trying to present to us,
Yeah.
because there are some gifts that have kind of butcher paper wrapping on them. They're not all fancy. They don't all look great. But ultimately, the bottom line is that you're getting something that is very valuable from.
Yeah. So you're saying he was a purely Christian perspective? It's funny how even that definition of Christianity in churches that have been around for a long time, in themselves have been going through evolution, yet they don't believe in that.
Yeah,
It's
well,
kind of
with him, I was saying that people who are on the hardcore Christian journey, who consider themselves real followers of Christ, would look at his work and fall into a space of some pretty heavy judgments, because a couple of his books are about
yeah, yeah,
erotic experiences, and the Christian mainstream, they believe that
mainstream. Yeah.
you want to avoid those experiences at all cost, unless you're in a bathroom in a public place. So it's
Yeah, I wouldn't say hardcore, like officially they're completely, definitely Christian. I mean, the intense Christian can definitely see similarities in A Course in Miracles. When you even the Kabbalah gets into that, where even the superficial Judaism, and then you get into the deep stuff, and it's all coming back to the same truth. It's inevitably the same universe, the same source, the same experience. So regardless, anybody that, but as far as mainstream, absolutely, it is interesting how there's been this, and my wife watching these drama shows, I get an inkling of it every now and then, and I see some women claiming to be Christian, and they don't want to have any part in this psychic tarot card stuff, this voodoo shit as they call it, and because it's opening gateways to the devil, right? And she just wanted to share her thoughts about what happened, and this woman's just like, no, I will not hear any of it. You're not even here to talk about it. None of it. And it's really interesting because she's also, having premarital sex and has a child out of wedlock. And it's like we have all these different definitions of what's okay and what's not. It's really interesting that we don't want to face that it is our responsibility of whether we're accepting or we're fearful of something. And we think that this devil thing is outside of us, instead of recognizing that the whole avoidance that I have is really just to finding peace and love within myself. And I've been resistant to that.
Yeah, it is kind of tragic in a lot of ways how we set ourselves up to be hypocrites, and then we become burdened with all this unconscious guilt. I see a lot of that going on politically right now, where uh, it's become very rampant. The idea of do as I say, not as I do. And you see these guys who are extreme as far as homophobic, and then they get busted in a bus stop
Yeah.
bathroom trying to approach a 14-year-old boy. It's like, damn, what are you thinking here? And that is the insidious nature of the ego. The ego sets us up to do
Judge
that.
and be judged.
Yes, and then that's the scarlet letter of the 21st century. And Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote about the scarlet letter in the 1800s, and 21st century. It's not the letter, It's not a big letter A on your chest, but everybody's walking around with this big "am a hypocrite"
Well, at least I admit it.
designation. So, well, that's the
I
sad
think,
thing. They won't admit it
yeah.
unless they're backed into a corner and beaten with a stick. And it's like, well, I don't want that job. I'm sorry. I don't need to be the enforcer with the realm of hypocrisy.
Yeah, no. I definitely have a unique approach with life. Like saying that I would admit it is, you know, as far as I see it, I'm everything. And this whole life that I'm living, you know, doesn't just consist of what Devin's been doing, you know, it also consists of what everybody's been doing. And so I also, you know, I'm everything. Yeah, I would admit that I'm a hypocrite. You know, I'm, what's some other good ones? Heretic. I'm definitely a heretic in this land. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're going to get stoned eventually. It's just a matter of time.
Maybe tonight. No. Well, different kind of stuff. Oh, wait.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that either. You know.
No, I'm everything.
I was looking at this text from the course. Says the whole purpose of this course is to teach you that the ego is unbelievable and will forever be unbelievable. You who made the ego by believing the unbelievable cannot make this judgment alone. By accepting the atonement for yourself, you are deciding against the belief that you can be alone, thus dispelling the idea of separation and affirming your true identification with the whole kingdom as literally a part of you. And, you know, that whole idea of a world that is unbelievable, all you have to do is just be halfway lucid and watch 10 minutes of a news broadcast. And, you know, it becomes very obvious that the course is something to be taken quite literally, because this whole world, this whole fiasco that we have created is just getting crazier and crazier.
Yeah. It's like once it gets so crazy we can't stand it, then people are just going to be popping out of this world like crazy. Like, oh, can't do this anymore. Nope, nope. It's like, how much can we take? Are we actually going to last until we're burning in the depths of hell that we made? It's like, no, I think eventually we'll realize, wow, this is dumb. I don't want to do this game anymore, and just kind of bloop.
That would be, yeah, that would definitely be the desired outcome. But we do like to take it right up to the edge. We hold off until the last 37 seconds, and then we finally capitulate, fall apart, and whine and whimper. But it all eventually will be accomplished.
It's exciting. It's beautiful.
So, what's happening in Utah, the land of the Utes? Are you seeing any Utes out there on the streets?
No, I barely see anybody walking around. It's like nobody walks anymore unless you're really down in the city, something. But yeah, wow, everybody's in these cars, these big metal boxes with wheels. It's pretty crazy how things have changed.
That it is. So is it pretty nippy there now? You're getting the winter effect?
Oh, it's getting chilly. Yeah, you know, as far as yesterday, I did not require a jacket, but last week I did. So it's kind of up and down. It's getting there. It's getting there.
Yeah, it's that in-between season that we're all so fond of. And before long, we'll be shoveling snow.
Yeah, someone will.
So a little bit of avoidance going on there.
Oh, we live in condos, so somebody else does it. I don't know who. I think they have somebody that they pay or something. I don't know.
Hmm.
Anywho, it's enjoyable life going on over here.
That it is. And you've got the Bambinos, which is a wonderful thing. So,
Yeah, that's pretty much my life right now. I am planning and developing a intensive course using the lessons of A Course in Miracles, an actual uh, several different types of different programs together, kind of not just talking about it and reading it, which is part of it, but also having exercises and meditations that are done, where there's several different things you can tap into and use, um, and then all in one place so that it's accessible. And it's pretty much you can put a lot into it, and there's a lot of time required, especially being an everyday thing. But for somebody that's really serious about, achieving what A Course in Miracles has to offer, might be inspired by this. And I'm just following the inspiration myself to doing it. At the same time, I'm thinking, oh wow, that's a lot of work. So I'm kind of going through this resistance where my mind's making it into something bigger than it really is. And but I'm thinking it's going to be nice to have out there and just, you know, be able to reference to and to do myself again someday.
that's
That makes
great.
sense.
Yeah. I think that more and more, I think we're going to be seeing things like this popping up that are somewhat permanent. The site I built, the miraclewithin.org, is a permanent site, and people can go there. And if you're having trouble telling,
Permanent.
or if you're having trouble comprehending the course, or being able to share the course with others, it's a good site because it's a good introduction to A Course in Miracles. And
Yeah.
so people can go there and plug in and say, hey, check this out, and get your friends on board. But having a site like you're talking about is, for those of us who are in the course, it's helping to mobilize and to um, kind of kick up the evolution a notch or two. And
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I don't like the word boot camp because that refers to not just military, but that it seems like it's a beginning. You do it first or something. But it's more of it's going to be a very intensive version of the course where you're taking, it a little farther, a little more intense than just reading the lessons and doing the little meditations. But, a lot of people forget about even just as much as doing the lessons, how easy is it to forget, oh, I didn't stop and do my meditation today. Well, if you also had an MP3 that could notify you, and even the development of an app I'm working on can notify you about the meditation, and you can just simply hit play, then it will help you and remind you and guide you through it and do it. It's pretty awesome ideas. Anyway, let's see what actually happens.
Yeah, I think that can become a very valuable tool. I think there are a lot of people who would appreciate that.
Yeah.
All you have to do is go on to any of the pages or groups with A Course in Miracles on Facebook, and you really get a sense of how divergent um, the whole thing has become. It's like with with this idea of creating a group to create solidarity or unification. 9 times out of 10, after 6 months or a year, one or two people come along and stir up trouble in the group. And so it really is something where, it just is ongoing. There are so many opinions, so many beliefs that we have to confront, and forgive and step above, but having something that is not corruptible. People can't come along and say, oh, I don't like this part of the website, and start World War III over it. I think is a good thing. If you have a feedback option, that feedback is not posted online. Send it to you as an email, and you can confront it however you want to. But I think that we do sometimes have too much dissension going on in a lot of these public discussion opportunities that we have online.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's very interesting. I mean, I see it all as an opportunity of forgiveness, and really bringing up stuff inside me to see and forgive. And that's actually part of my course. So right now it's all just kind of in the process of coming out and just starting. Really, it's going to probably take me a year to do it, or to make it all. But part of the course is on a weekly basis, I'm going to offer an audio, which is not required for the course, of just tearing down and ripping on people. Mostly just just something, a belief, and you're fat and you're ugly and all this stuff, and really coming at it and taking that approach of, yes, what did this bring up in you, and really taking that sense of honesty to find that process of forgiveness, and magnifying that sensation that you're having a big problem with it. You're like, oh, this is really offensive, and as I say, this is going to be very crude, very explicit, and that's kind of the point of it. I want to offend, so that you can realize that you are not offendable. It's like, if you actually forgive it, then it won't offend you. It won't even touch you. You will be untouchable.
Yeah. And that's the way it should work. That really is the bottom line for all of us, is get to the point where we are so capable of looking at the error of this world and just walking away from it, not having a reaction, just giving it no power whatsoever. So it sounds like that, is going to be something that you'll have your naysayers. You have a lot of people out there condemning the site, I'm sure, but that's actually a good thing. That means that you're having an effect.
Yeah. At the same time, I also have a part of it of appreciation and just loving thoughts being shared and just forgiving thoughts. And you want to forgive those as well and not feel anything as well. So it's intense. That's for sure. Gotta thank Teddy Poppy. I actually lived with him for 8 months in Boston, Quincy. Well, technically his wife, but for the name, think of me as a lesson in forgiveness. It's like, people think and deal with him a lot over the internet and everything, where he's just, it seems so intense. He comes on very intense, and same with in ACIM Gather here, that people like to block him and avoid him and deny him. And it's like, no, why is this so offensive? I mean, you're saying you're not only a Christian, but a Course in Miracles Christian, and you're not applying forgiveness, you're not applying acceptance, you're not applying love. I mean, you're not turning the other cheek or whatever. It's like, how can you say you're a disciple when you're not even utilizing or practicing the teachings of who you are a disciple of?
Yeah, well, it's the conditional Christian. I am a Christian with conditions, and my conditions are to make sure that my ego is enhanced by my Christianity. And,
yes, as long as it's a shiny gold diamond cross, then it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you want to have 1 or 2 rubies in there too, because you want to make sure that you You acknowledge all the blood that was shed and all the darkness that was experienced with that crown of thorns.
And maybe the little sign up above in platinum, right?
Yeah, that's a nice touch. That would really enhance the whole thing.
I think we got a product we can sell here.
Which will support the website that you want to build. So we probably should move forward with this.
Sounds good to me. That's funny. Oh, I thought there was something I was going to say. I forget what it was, but oh well. Not important, obviously.
Well, perhaps you could recall at what point you had that thought of what you wanted to say.
Something you were saying before the cross thing. What were you saying? I don't know.
Yeah, that's my problem. It lasts for 30 seconds and then it dissolves and goes away.
Yeah, I mean,
but that is by design, my design. So. Well, one of the things that's good though is that I don't forget how to cook, because the family definitely is plugged into the cooking thing. You know, I have this week was kind of a big week here. I made some really fantastic meals and very few leftovers floating around in the house right now, which is also a nice thing. We have 4 people, 5 people in the house off and on, and I usually cook for 7 or 8 for each meal, so there's leftovers to get everybody through the night, the wee hours of the morning, and the refrigerator has been cleaned out. And,
yeah, I can't say that cooking is my forte. The kids would tell you, like, it's always too sour or too salty or too something. And they're picky too, so, but I don't even know. I eat it. I'm fine. I'm fine eating anything. I like it all.
Yeah, I think that, in truth, cooking is kind of like speaking a special language. It's a common language. Everybody loves to sit down and break bread and have a good meal. And for me, my cooking is kind of my way of bringing everybody together so that we can share, we can spend a few minutes having the same experience, cutting down on that fragmentation of the ego. Everybody's having a good nosh and it's all out of the same stew pot, then there is a unification that's going on.
Yeah.
Music is the other common language that we have in this world. We can all sit down and listen to something that, brings us together without thinking, without speaking, but just through the process of experience itself. And I think that's an important part of A Course in Miracles, is that having communion is a very needful thing. And it's not just communion with like-minded people, but to have communion where you're bringing the diverse groups together with that one common element, I think is really a powerful journey, a powerful process within the Course. So,
yeah, over there cooking in tongues.
well, I have cooked a few tongues, beef tongue. You can boil that and slice it, make sandwiches out of it. But,
yeah, I don't know if I've ever had tongue. It seems like I tried a few different things, like chicken hearts and stuff, but yeah, I don't know if I've escaped into the tongue land, except for speaking in tongues, but
yeah,
Yeah.
beef tongue is about the size of a size 12 basketball shoe. It's a pretty good chunk of meat.
It goes way back there. Yeah, I love music. you know, not as much as some people, that's for sure. I used to listen to it a lot more than, see, now I'm all like figuring out if I really like music or not. No, I enjoy rhythm and beat and, you know, the melody, and just like feeling that movement in you. And I really appreciate places like doing this ecstatic dancing, which is just a common name for the way of just a non-judgment place of just letting it just move you, and you're just feeling it and expressing it, and, you know, everybody kind of on the same page. Yeah, you know, it's, we're all feeling the same vibrations and the same frequencies. You know, we might hear it differently depending on our ability to hear, but you know, as far as it moving through us, you know, in our bodies, and just shaking and vibrating and tuning us into those frequencies and that spirit, it's definitely a helpful, wonderful approach to transcendence.
That it is. It's actually the first step in the unification of the mind. You know, we hear a common beat, and that draws us closer. That allows us to become less guarded. And once you start to let go of that desire to be separate from those around you, all of a sudden there is a magical thing that occurs. And you are thinking the same thing at the same time. You are experiencing that reunification and that coming back together in a state of oneness.
Yeah.
So it's like the door that opens up to a whole different dimension, and allows us to briefly experience a sense of release from the darkness of separation and isolation, and being phobic about those around us.
Yeah. Have you experienced those singing bowls? I'm sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. I have a dear friend
Awesome.
down here in the south side of Chicago who's got the crystal singing bowl. She's got a dozen of them or so, and she does meditations. Actually, probably coming up in the next day or two, because we're entering a new moon, and she usually does the meditations with the new moon. So probably over the weekend there will be a
Nice.
crystal ball meditation. And,
Yeah. Feeling those vibrations and those frequencies, it's pretty powerful stuff. I thoroughly enjoy it. I personally, in a lot of my recordings, I have a lot of brain wave type music and all about frequencies and oming and stuff, mostly because, you know, I'm hearing it as well, and it helps me to tune in, and it helps me to relax and let it go. It's, you know, it's helpful. It's not required, not necessary, but it is definitely just something to feel, and just almost as if you set a bar where you want to be at, and you just kind of tune in literally to the sound and to the frequency.
well, and it's a mechanical feature, I think, of living in a body for this brief period of time that we are experiencing that. And it can be a source of realignment, redirecting our thought patterns and our desire to express life in a way that is based on the ideas of peace and love and harmony.
Mm.
Because generally those tones have a tendency to really bring you into a state of being at peace with whatever's going on around you. And so it can be a very powerful catalyst for a shift in thinking.
Yeah, and speaking of just having this sound in my ear of this rainforest, you know, and the birds chirping, and Reminds me of October Sky. Have you seen that movie? Good movie. I think that's what it. No, no, August Rush. Reminds me of August Rush. Have you seen that movie? Both good movies. But he's a little kid and he hears music just in the air, you know, and the sound of things, and he becomes a writer of symphonies and all this stuff. But it's pretty amazing, like tuning in to hearing. Essentially, the spirit can use anything to help teach you, you know, what you are and everything. So just tapping into any other perspective, and even that being just the sound of what's happening around where you usually don't listen to, you usually don't pay attention, and just to kind of tune in and tap into that, it's like you recognize, wow, there's more happening to life, like a music in the background, you know. Even something that you would say, well, that won't be very lovely music, but even just hearing the cars driving by and even the sound on the freeway, you know, it still has some sort of play about it, you know, some sort of rhythm. It might not be the best, or it might not be the most relatable, but to just it's more about the ability to listen in a different way, in a different perspective than what you normally would be like, oh, this is just noise, you know.
Yeah, it's not an irritant anymore. And
Yeah.
I think God, in the strictest sense, there is a vibration to God, even though we like to go to that deepest level of our definition of God as being the totality of nothingness that includes all things, which is kind of a fun paradox. But
Yeah.
the truth is, I think that that vibrations, musical vibrations, musical alignment, uh, are a very important part of the journey back to that place where there is no sound. You
Yeah.
know?
Agreed with the journey, especially because as far as I experience it, it is what the holy spiritual universe is a series of frequencies and interference patterns between this light and sound. And so it is definitely very helpful in the awakening process as you're, you know, simply going through this kundalini or reiki or however you want to describe it, of tapping into just having an alternate perspective, which I would describe the spiritual universe as the happy dream version of what most of us see and are dealing with in going through the training of A Course in Miracles. So I absolutely agreed there. Now,
Right.
I noticed we're coming up on time here. I wanted to ask you a question about, well, what other programs are you doing for my friends here that want to know?
Other programs? Well, we've got a lot of stuff going on, actually. I have my weekly session with Barrett Hadeen, which is The Miracle Within. We're up to
Uh,
131 episodes, which is
Yeah,
pretty neat.
how long does that last? That's like 2 years, 3 years?
It's over 3 years that we've been doing it. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're having a great time with it. Then I do a program with Stephen Hubble that's been, kind of fragmented. We've had a few sessions. We're up to about 41 sessions now. And then the thing that you and I and Barrett do, the Finding Miracles at the Movies, we just did one yesterday. There's a fresh one out there that people can tag into. Then I do the thing with Humanity Healing, which is an introduction to A Course in Miracles, and trying to help people who are not familiar with the Course gain a little traction as they're starting out reading a book that is really designed to create a whole different thought system. So
yeah,
when you're on the road with the Course, you're going to crash your old thought system and build a new one. And that's not always an easy thing to do. So those programs are designed to be supportive of people who are kind of first contact with A Course in Miracles.
Now, I know I mentioned with Barrett, I was asking how long. I'm actually curious on, do they have a run time usually about the same amount, or is it just kind of going with the flow about it?
Yeah, it's generally going with the flow. We have about the average, I would say, would be between 30 and 35 minutes.
Yeah, that's pretty
And
good.
now, actually, we've done the Course in Miracles and the Song of Prayer and the workbook and manual for teachers. And so we're starting to expand that. We're going to be bringing in other people as random guests and
Oh,
making
nice.
it more just a flow of consciousness. So, yeah, we're evolving with the Course in Miracles and exponentially in all directions.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for this time you take with me as
Oh,
often as it.
absolutely. And oh, I was going to mention this to you. I don't know, now that it's winter, I have a little dry skin issue, and so I was giving myself a little infusion, but of skin application. I don't know what you use for the babies, but if you're using baby oil for them, that's
Okay.
mineral oil, and it really doesn't absorb that well. The one thing universally you'll find all over the world that is the
Okay.
perfect skin tone oil is olive oil. So you
Olive
gotta
oil.
do olive oil
Yeah.
on
What do you
your
think about
babies.
what do you think about coconut oil?
Yeah, I think olive oil is the foundation oil. I mean, coconut and almond and
Yeah.
all the others are cool, but olive oil is very, very healing and regenerative. And we're running over time, but
Yeah,
I'm talking
agreed.
about olive oil. So,
It's all good. Um, Thank you again. And yeah, okay. Yeah. Talk to you later. Thank you all for tuning in. If you want to find out more information about us, openandclear.com or themiraclewithin.org. I
yes,
still don't got a sounding thing.
you'll have an orgasm as soon as you land on the landing page.
Themiracle.orgasm. Okay. All right.
I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, see you later.
Bye.